Okay, so this next thing we're going to look at is the midpoint on a number line. So we're going to do first a number line real quick, and then we're going to go into coordinate plane. So what's the distance? What's the midpoint between A and D? So here is A, and here is D. Where am I going to find the middle? Well, since these are 8 away, A and D is 8 away, what's half of it? 4, right? So I'm going to go 4 in between. So -4 is the midpoint of A and D. It's a location. Now, when we're looking at something that's a two-dimensional plane or a coordinate plane, I've got x's and y's in the play here. I need to figure out what the middle of the x's are and what the middle of the y's are. So basically, I'm going to be averaging the x values and averaging the y values. All right? So here, this gives me the endpoints. So it's got the endpoints 3 and 5, which is, 3, 5 is right here and up there. That's Q. And where's S? S is 7 and -9. That's right there. All right, so let's draw a line. And let's see if we can visually figure out what the midpoint is going to be. And then we're going to match it up with my formula that I'm given here. So sometimes the drawing isn't as accurate as we'd like it to be. So we know it's going to be somewhere here, right? Well, what's halfway between the 3 and the 7? How far away are the 3 and the 7? They're 4 apart. So what should my x-coordinate end up being?
5.
It should end up being 5. Okay. And then what's halfway between my 5 and my -9? So that's right here and here. So I'm going in this direction. So this is going to be -2. So my midpoint should end up at 5 and -2. Okay, so we visually figured that out. Halfway between the two x values, halfway between the two y values. So now let's use our formula and see what we end up with. So we've got midpoint is, so I've got the x values, average them out. I've got the y values, average them out. And I end up with 10/2 and -4/2. So my midpoint is 5, -2. All right? And that jives with what we found visually here. Okay. Now let's have a look at this example. So you've got the two endpoints, -2 and 12. -2 and 12 is right here. And then 10 and -4 is right there. Okay. Can we see what the midpoint is going to be? How far away are my x values to each other? So just kind of look at the differences of the x's, right? How far apart are they? What's halfway? 4? Okay, and I know it's going to have to end up on the line, so where does this end up being? Okay, midpoint is 4, 4. Now, let's have a look using my formula and see what I end up getting. So what are my x values? -2 and 10. And what are my y values? 12 and -4. So find the averages there. So I've got 8 over 2, and then I've got 8 over 2. What does that reduce to? 4, 4. So this is my midpoint. Fairly simple? Okay. Now we're going to mess with it a little bit. Going to change the situation, change the scenario. Now we have the midpoint, and there's one missing endpoint. How are we going to deal with this? Okay, so we've got the midpoint is 3, 4, and then the endpoint is -3, -2. We need to find the coordinates of the other endpoint. So let's plug everything that we have given. And you know how in the formula where it said m equals, I'm going to write it over here, it said m equals x1 plus x2 over 2 and y1 plus y2 over 2? We have a number here. We have a coordinate here. So let's replace this right here. And we end up getting 3, 4 equals, we know this is one of the endpoints, so let's call that x1, y1. And then we'll say that the one that we don't know is y2, x2. So what do we end up with here then? -3 plus x2 over 2. And then -2 plus y2 over 2 is how I get the y values. Now, that's saying that this point here is equal to, should be equal to this point here, right? But there's something missing. I'm missing the x2 value and the y2 value. So what I need to figure out is what x2 and what y2 value is going to satisfy this equation, this setup here. But it's a point equaling a point. How do I deal with that algebraically? Okay, so set it up so you've got the x coordinates, and set it up so that you have the y coordinates. All right. So what is my x coordinate equation going to be, or setup? 3 equals -3 plus x2 over 2. So that comes from this and this. And now, what is my y coordinate equation going to be? 4 equals -2 plus y2 over 2. So that comes from here and here. Okay? Now I have two equations. I've got one equation for the x value and another equation for the y value. All right. So now we're just going to use some algebra to solve them. So what do you do to solve this? Multiply 2 on both sides, you end up with 6 equals -3 plus x2. And then what do you get for add 3 on both sides? What do we get x2 equals? X2 is equal to 9. And then here, multiply both sides by 2. I get 8 equals -2 plus y2. Add 2 on both sides. We get y2 is equal to 10. All right, so what is the end point? The other end point is? The other end point is bracket 9, 10 bracket. Make sure you have this as a coordinate point. Don't just leave the answer as a loosey-goosey two numbers flying in the wind, okay? Don't leave your answer like this separately. You want to state it as a point because it is a point. All right? So I'm going to leave this question for you guys to try. I'm going to tell you the answer to see if you, just so you can check whether you got it correct or not. And the other end point for this question, if you don't want to know, you can plug your ears or hit pause. Okay, so the other end point is 6, -9. All right, so try that one, see how it goes. And then there's a bunch of worksheets in this little booklet that I've given you here as practice. Sound good?